In the heart of a forgotten village, drenched in the harsh realities of life and poverty, a gentle breeze rustled through the impoverished homes, while a sun-kissed dawn broke upon the horizon. The light filtered through the simple thatched roofs, illuminating the despair that lingered in the air. For young Amina, a 12-year-old girl whose dreams were as fragile as the threadbare dress she wore, the morning felt far from joyful. Today, she stood on the creaking old floor of her grandmother's house, dressed in a wedding gown that draped loosely on her thin frame, an attire barely suitable for her age. The fabric had once belonged to a girl who wore it during happier moments in her life, unlike Amina, who felt no excitement or anticipation, only a hollow pit of dread. Outside, a crowd gathered, whispers floating softly among the onlookers. Men turned their heads away, women's voices muffled in nervous tones, aware of what was about to unfold. Amina was set to wed Mr. Charles Knight, a wealthy man from a distant land. He was nearly 6 decades her senior, a 70-year-old stranger with silver hair and shadowed eyes that held no warmth. Amina's heart raced as she remembered the events leading to this day. Just days earlier, her younger brother had fallen gravely ill. The local clinic had turned them away, demanding payment they couldn't muster. Amina's mother had searched their small home for anything of value to sell, bartering her jewelry and even Amina's school books, but it wasn't sufficient. Then Mr. Knight had appeared out of nowhere, a foreign investor staying in a lavish lodge nearby. He carried a blatant presence, and tales swirled about him, curious yet foreboding. When their paths crossed, he offered a bride price that outweighed anything they could have hoped for, enough to save her brother's life and stave off hunger for a year. Amina's mother, desperate and cornered, had lashed out, but her resolve crumbled when the fever escalated. The little girl, too advanced for her years yet still naive, whispered a resigned, "I'll do it," and thus herself became a bargaining chip in the cruel game of survival. The village had turned into a twisted sanctuary, where the lines between right and wrong blurred. The wedding itself was a muted affair. Her grandmother tethered a necklace of beads around her neck, while Mr. Knight donned a fancy dark suit, the fabric 1,000-fold more plush than anything Amina ever touched. She heard the elder's voice ask if Mr. Knight accepted her as his wife. He replied with a simple, "Yes." Unvoiced, she acquiesced with a stiff nod, the concept of marital vows alien to her youthful understanding. The ceremony unfolded amidst practiced rituals, devoid of the customary joy and excitement. That night, Amina found herself in a foreign guest room, seated on the edge of a pristine bed, her heart heavy with silence. Mr. Knight sat in the far corner, engrossed in reading a book in a language that rolled off his tongue too smoothly for Amina's understanding. He offered her soup, his voice softer than expected, yet the gentleness confused her. He slept in the next room, locked away as if she were a mere stranger. Holding a small photo of her brother, Amina gazed into the night, pondering what kind of man he was, knowing only that he had questions never asked. Days turned into twisted weeks, a surreal journey of adjusting to a life turned upside down. Unlike the episodes she had anticipated, harsh words, control, and compliance, Mr. Knight treated her as though she were an exquisite jewel. He bestowed gifts of comfort, a room solely hers, dresses of gentle pastels, with daily teas served at precisely 4 o'clock, accompanied by honeyed cookies. At first it felt superficially polite, but it confused Amina, sparking her suspicion. On one poignant night, curiosity compelled Amina to surreptitiously peek through a partially closed door. Mr. Knight sat once more in the library, bathed in golden light, but this time she noticed something jarring. He stared into a mirror, the reflection showcasing despair etched into his features. She quickly retreated, her heart pounding with the knowledge that beneath his composed exterior lay untold secrets. In the dawn of the 5th day, Mr. Knight invited Amina on a walk through the serene woodland near their lodge. He presented her with sturdy boots and a notebook, a request for her to jot down her thoughts. "Stories help us navigate our understanding of life," he said quietly. But she sensed an underlying depth to his words, an unspoken gravity that sent chills down her spine. Days turned to weeks again, and Amina noticed a locked door in the hallway, sturdy and unfathomable. She wanted answers, so one fateful evening, while Mr. Knight was away, she borrowed a little courage and picked the lock. What lay inside felt like a tomb of lost tales. Photographs adorned the walls, children from distant lands, some beaming with joy while others wore expressions of fear. Dates accompanied them, many marked with an ominous X, signifying lives cut short, others unmarked, a haunting reminder of the disregarded. A wooden trunk lay in the corner, a treasure trove of letters addressed to girls long forgotten. One letter, written just days ago, had her name written in bold. Heart racing, she clutched the note that carried the words of a man who barely knew her, yet felt a profound sense of connection. The door squeaked open behind her. Mr. Knight stood there, the shadows growing longer, fatigue lining his face like a weary traveler. "I suppose it's time you understood," he murmured, his voice low. "Understood what?" Amina demanded, her heart constricting with an uneasy mix of anger and fear. "That I did not marry you for my sake," he confessed. "I married you to save you." Having been propelled into the dirge of twisted realities, Amina found herself caught in a whirlwind of remnants. With a heavy heart, Mr. Knight explained how he had devoted the last 2 decades traveling, finding vulnerable girls at risk of disappearing into the darkness of society's shadows. Each photo displayed a story of survival, while the dates etched on the walls bore witness to lives that had battled against the tide of societal neglect. "You're the first girl I've married," he said quietly, a note of sorrow laced in his voice. "I knew that your family was on the brink, and that someone else would come for you if I did not act first." The weight of his words sank deep into Amina's chest. Suddenly, the path before her lay clear. The man she once feared had instead offered her a contract for freedom where others sought a chain. As the days unfolded, conversations morphed into shared moments. Despite the chasm of ages between them, they exchanged laughter and tales, their lives intertwined in unexpected ways. Yet nothing prepared her for the turn of fate. One morning, Amina awoke to an empty house. Mr. Knight's absence felt profound. She knocked tentatively on his bedroom door. A foreboding silence greeted her. Upon entering, she discovered him lying still, peaceful, yet absent of life. The doctors would later declare it as a heart condition, the natural imposition of age catching up with him. In the morning haze that surrounded her, she uncovered a sealed envelope addressed directly to her. The handwritten note spoke of freedom, her names adorning properties not yet known to her, tangible manifestations of his effort to grant her autonomy, a new beginning that stood in stark contrast to the life she almost didn't escape. Something ignited within her. She was more than just a child caught in life's web. She was a beacon now. The news of Mr. Knight's death rippled through the village, whispers weaving through the air. Amina found herself thrust into an elaborate court of opinions, some revering her, while others cursed her unannounced inheritance. a mere child, now a landowner. In a world where girls were seldom seen as anything other than commodities, how was it possible for little Amina to command such respect? Amina listened without retort. She embraced the silence that enveloped her, taking refuge where Mr. Knight once found solace. The lodge transformed into a safe haven, not just for her but for other girls seeking sanctuary. Slowly but surely, she began her own revolution, directing funds towards the clinic, creating schools, and enacting laws against child marriage. As she held her ground amidst the storms of resistance, she discovered letters hidden under floorboards that chronicled Mr. Knight's lifelong mission. They spoke of powerful figures colluding within darkness, enabling the suffering of innocent lives. Yet they also contained tiny seeds of hope and resilience, urging her on her journey. Amina set out to expose the culprits behind the scenes, turning her grief into fierce determination. She birthed a powerful movement, gathering allies with similar dreams for change. At 14, she stood before a United Nations assembly, her voice strong and unwavering, imploring one and all to recognize the plight of girls just like her. Through her audacity and vision, she enacted change across borders and transformed the narrative, rewiring the fabric of communities where silence once thrived. By 16, she returned to her village, not as the frail girl they once knew, but as a beacon of strength and hope, instilling courage in the very heart of their culture. Amidst laughter, Amina carried the legacy of Mr. Knight, as she unlocked stories with books glowing vibrantly in a room filled with laughter. She understood now, silence was a canvas where resilience painted the loudest stories of all. By the dying light of another long day, she would whisper a quiet farewell to the past, akin to planting seeds of hope in a future yet unplowed. It was in those fragments of time that she discovered fire, not just in herself, but in every girl she met along the way. And whenever she paused amidst the noise of her realm, she felt her heart resonate with the echoes of Mr. Knight's quiet strength, a guide not just in heart, but in spirit, igniting every corner of her journey. Amina had solidified her tale into an eternal saga, one where her lighthouse shone brightly for others, where they too could find hope in the darkest of nights.